Life over coffee. Conversations for transformation.
One of the hardest things a Christian parent will ever experience is a child choosing not to walk with the Lord. And attached to this personal struggle is the temptation to force or manipulate righteousness on the child. I think many of us have been there. And you will know if you are susceptible to these struggles if you are over worrying, over caring, or over trying to get your child to change. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 3:6, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. Now, typically, these temptations only happen with those who are closest to us, like our spouses and, of course, our children. We are freer from the lostness of or less tempted to worry about those who are not within our immediate relational spheres. Jesus had the remarkable ability to care well for everyone, regardless of his biological relationship with them. I mean, he wept for the stubborn people in Jerusalem, we see in Matthew 23. And in Matthew 12, he unemotionally explained how being related to him did not give his family special privileges. The bibliocentric sweet spot is not to overcare or undercare for those who need the Lord. And you will find that rest after you learn that you cannot change anyone, including your children. Anxiety or anger will not bring people into the kingdom of God. The anxious parent does not trust the Lord. The angry parent does not trust the Lord. Both of these parental demographics have forgotten how cooperating with the Lord in the spiritual maturity of their children has a stopping point. Paul identified that stopping point right after planting and watering, just before God gives the growth. So perhaps it would be helpful if you put a period after the word watered in 1 Corinthians 3:6 as a reminder that personal responsibility for the redemption of others stops there as you wait on the Lord to provide the necessary change in a person's life. Then you will quickly know if you have blown through that sweet spot, if you try to manipulate your child to trust Christ. Fear and anger are two manipulative strategies of parents of rebellious children. And of course, regret and self-condemnation typically accompany fear and anger. These parents are not trusting the Lord. Grace is the means God uses to save individuals, not your works. If your child turns to the Lord, it will be because of God's empowering favor. I am talking about amazing grace, which is something that you cannot manipulate. If your child is not walking with Jesus and you are struggling with anxiety or anger, or the accompanying problems of regret or self-condemnation after you think about your anxiety and anger, you must re-examine how you relate to God. Now, I have been going through a 31-day devotional. This is devotional number 31. It is titled, You Cannot Change Your Children. And throughout these 31 devotionals, I have consistently called you to assess your life, your marriage, your children, as you cooperate with the Lord to make the necessary changes in you so that you can help your kids to love God and to love others. I have asked you to water and plant only. I have not requested or expected you to provide the growth that they need to live for God. There is active and passive obedience. Active obedience is what you're supposed to do from a parenting perspective we're talking about here. Passive obedience is what God does to you and, of course, what God does to your children. You must functionally know the difference, which you will perceive through the grid of anger or regret or anxiousness or self-condemnation. If you're struggling in any of these areas, the Lord may be using your wayward child as a means to parent you into biblical faith. The irony is that if you struggle unnecessarily over your kid's waywardness, you're doing something similar to what your child is doing, not trusting God. So the first step in parenting your child is to parent yourself. So it's time to parent. Question number one, what hinders you from fully trusting God to change your child, if this is true for you? And then number two, write out the sin pattern or the sin patterns that hinder you and make a plan to change while you trust God to change your child. This is Parenting Devotion number 31. The title of it is You Cannot Change Your Children.
Thanks for joining us. Learn more and get access to other resources at lifeovercoffee.com.